this weekend.
Oh, no kidding. This weekend coming up, yeah?
No, the previous weekend.
Ooh,
Canada Day.
wow. Did you make a ton of money?
No, I made the regular amount of money.
A regular amount of money. I love that.
I didn't get paid bonus money for working on a holiday.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
That's lame.
At least no one told me about it.
That's terrible. That's lame. It is what it is, I guess. How are you? What do you got planned for this weekend? Have you got stuff happening this weekend?
Yep, more work.
More.
Yeah.
Is still night shift, I'm assuming, eh?
Yeah, well, I try and aim for 9 to 1 a.m. shifts. But they keep pushing it later and later because they really want the guys for, like, the 12 to 3 a.m. type of scope.
Wow, that's interesting. So what is later? Like when you say later, what would be later than 9 to 1? Like
12
right.
to 3 is what is the time they generally want people working night shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So funny story last week. I made a few modifications to chapter 1. I went to put it up on Road Road, and then I realized I didn't have a synopsis.
Oh no.
One thing I forgot.
Therefore the synopsis, right?
Yeah, I think I sent you the most recent version I came up with like a couple hours before this meeting. I think it's got like one more different iteration than what I've already sent you, so it's not too much.
I think the notes I took were on the most recent one that you gave me here. So let me just pull it up here. I think as we go through it, correct me if I'm wrong. This was good. So what I did was I just went through it, and these questions are just, I already know the answer to a lot of these questions. What they did was they just simply, it was good, well written. And you've got, by the way, I think you've got a real, how do I say it? You've got a really strong marketing flair. Like, I think you naturally know how to write a thing to like draw me in. There's like you're a good salesman of your own story. So I might, and really half of this read is just story questions. I wasn't thinking of most of these are not necessarily corrections you need to make or stuff. They're just kind of fun questions that the thing would arouse in the audience. I already know the answer to a lot of these questions. And so it's good that you would be arousing these questions. Like, so the Bureau of Paranormal Activity is tasked with maintaining the secrecy of the supernatural. All of the monsters, demons, angels, wizards, aliens, and superheroes must be safely integrated into society or eliminated if they can't be. It's a great intro. I think that's a really solid, because it's
realized with the later
clear.
Intros that I did with Julius, I'm like, oh my god, this doesn't actually, because what I'm selling them isn't necessarily Julius. What I'm selling them is the world. So I need to iterate, like, this is a book about supernatural world with superheroes, wizards, and demons and stuff. So I need to iterate that point first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
No one cares about Julius. He's just who you were using.
Yeah, and so what you end up having is, I think the first, like we've talked about in the past, the first people who don't know you, me, the man on the moon of this story, the first obvious comparison I think a lot of people will make it to is Men in Black, because it feels very similar, even though it's on a different level, but that's fine, including the partner, the wizened old partner, and the new recruit, whoever that ends up being. So there's lots of comparisons to Men in Black. The difference will be is that you could say the same thing about The Boys and Marvel, and like people say, oh, isn't The Boys just Marvel? And I'm like, yeah, unless you've seen it, and it's nothing like Marvel. And it's fun precisely because it's sort of quite obviously a parallel to existing superhero worlds and lore, right? So I'm not, in other words, it doesn't bother me at all that you've got something that smells and looks a little bit like Men in Black. Anything that anybody's worried about will be dispelled immediately in your intro paragraph or your intro chapter, because it's so gross and gory and terrifying. That's where it's obviously not anything like Men in Black. So I love all of that. So if I'm the audience seeing this for the first time, I'm like, oh, who's the Bureau? Who controls them? Does it have a relationship with otherworldly entities or organizations? Like, where do all these monsters, demons, and angels come from? And stuff. But I don't think you need to answer any of that here. This is a marketing piece. What it's doing is it's sending
generating questions. It makes
exactly
the The point isn't to answer your questions. The point is to make you wonder enough to pick up the book and start reading.
And the only questions, like the only thing I would ever encourage you to maybe look at, and I don't even know if there are any here, is if you've presented something that's a little, in my opinion, just a little too vague and might need a little bit of expansion. But otherwise, no, I'm no, I don't care at all that you're, like you just said, you're creating a bunch of delicious questions in my head that I'm assuming this is the promise, and then I'm gonna see if your story delivers the promise of the premise, as Blake Snyder would call it. This is what it's gonna be. I know you got lots of questions, but I promise you, I'll answer all of them if you read my story. Now, however, the Bureau is facing its greatest crisis yet. A terrorist is trying to reveal the supernatural to the general populace. And that would be one of the only things I could say is tasked with maintaining the secrecy of the supernatural. That might be enough for people to, because down here is like, oh, the general populace doesn't already know about it. And I said, oh, that's what he meant by secrecy, which is probably fine. So a terrorist is trying to reveal the supernatural to the general populace. A galactic warlord is trying to conquer Earth. And the worst thing yet, the supernatural world may be revealed no matter what anybody does, as a coming catastrophe threatens to change the very landscape of the planet.
Too much.
It feels like too much, but it also doesn't. Like it might just be a matter of simplifying the wording, because I like the fact that you're saying a terrorist is trying to do this, a galactic warlord is trying to do that, and there's this coming catastrophe. The only thing I would potentially do is rework the wording of this. You say, a terrorist is trying to reveal the supernatural to the general populace. A galactic warlord is trying to conquer Earth, and a coming catastrophe threatening to rip the planet in half, may, or however you word that, may reveal the supernatural world, to human beings, no matter what happens. Like, so, because that's usually like a terrorist does this, a galactic warlord does this, and a coming catastrophe will do this. Sometimes flows a little better. I don't know if you need to do it.
So maybe
I might
just make it sound a little better, and the coming catastrophe may end the world regardless.
Yeah, and you may just take some. How can you shorten some stuff? Like, for example, no matter what anybody does, as a coming catastrophe threatens the entire planet. Mm-hmm. You might. I mean, sometimes that, rather than threatens to change the very landscape of the planet, that might be a little. Not that there's anything wrong. It might be just too much in the mouth. For Julius Flamel, none of that matters. He gets sent off to some corner of the world to investigate an incident and then deals with it. That's the first thing I thought, okay, I need a little more than that about Julius.
I couldn't really think of how to finagle him in there, because, like, on the one hand, like, he's not the person I'm using to reel it in, but he is still the protagonist, so I still gotta...
We do like this. This is not at all what I would, the best way to do this, but something that tells us a little bit, like, for example, even when you come down here, when you're like, Julius Flamel loves his job and all this, for Julius Flamel, Julius Flamel has worked so long for the BPA. None of this even phases him anymore, right? He's just happy to go eat ice cream, and enjoy the finer things, or however you do that. But what does that tell us? It gives us more than just Julius Flamel. Who is this guy? I don't know who he is. Oh, he works for the BPA, and he's worked for them so long fighting these monsters that it's sort of like just business. It's just another day at the office, right? And he's like, and that's a great way to introduce him. It's like, okay, so I get it. We got a guy who's like, this has been there, done that. So that I might do. We go here. Actually, I'm going to take those questions back, because it's easy to assume that the reason we're trying to keep this a secret from everybody, at least ostensibly, the reason everybody's would ever be given is, well, we just don't want people to freak out and be worried. But I'm curious to see. Oh, okay, I bet you there's more to it than that. I bet you there's sure, yeah, or some secret agenda or something like that. More like Julius here, like
it's kind of like racism, except instead of being worried about the supernatural being prosecuted, they're worried they're going to evoke a reaction that results in a ton of human casualties.
There you go. And I love something I love here. It's sort of inherent. Julius Flamel loves his job. He gets to help people travel the world, learn new things, and kill monsters. It's a, and I love it. It's both comedic and it also raises a question. Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black comes right to mind. If all he was just a cranky old man who just went about his business and that was the whole story, I'd be like, that's kind of two-dimensional. He presents that way at the beginning of the film, but as the story goes on, we begin to realize, oh, Tommy, there's something underneath that. And so right away, I promise you, no matter how quirky and funny and weird and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy you make this story, and no matter how tough and impervious you make Julius, I can just about guarantee that 99% of your audience, if that's how you present them to people, which you should, are going to be asking questions like, okay, I know how these stories work. There's more to this than that. Julius has got a tough exterior, but there's something soft and there's some pain there somewhere. And I'm looking forward to finding out how Hayden reveals that soft underbelly to us. And the way you do it, assuming you're still doing it this way, is in the way he interacts with his recruit over the course of the story. And by the end, he's potentially I don't care about my recruits don't care. Oh, we find out that's because he keeps losing them. Ooh, even a guy like Julius has emotions and feelings, right? So, and we see that we see him start to unravel a little bit, and we start to see his soft, vulnerable human side, even though he's still Julius all the time. And I love that shit. In the same way that we got, Tommy Lee Jones, we realized, oh, he's not just a crusty old cunt. There's a reason he's that way. He's got a history there, and that makes us like him, and it also creates depth for the story. But the fact that you start him off that way, I love that. Because it's sort of like, okay, so he's just eating ice cream and super casual. I'm like that first guy that you show him with. I'm like, dude, we're always like one bad decision away from the apocalypse here. So how can you be so casual? And it's sort of like, what else can you be? Like,
we're one bad decision away from the apocalypse, so I might as well have ice cream before it kicks off.
Yeah. It's like my uncle's a firefighter. The stuff he told me he had to go into places like when your job, a soldier in the war, where you're faced with two impossible tasks all the time, kill or be killed. Can you imagine the emotional toll that's got to take on a human being? I don't know how anybody endures that psychologically.
Soldiers don't always endure it, and the big problem with being a soldier is that effect is in basically 24/7. At least if you're a fighter, there are lulls between the crisis. You don't have to worry about any day a fire is going to spring up and immediately kill you.
Exactly. Actually, the person I was working on a story with right before you and I met is telling the story of how when she came back from Afghanistan with severe PTSD, how that affected her family. It's all about how she wasn't the only one who went to war. Her family went to war with her while they were at home, emotionally worrying and all that stuff. So this is great. So right now, I can promise you the thing I care most about your story is that no matter how cool and rich and funny and funky your world is, you're giving me a protagonist that at the beginning appears to be one person. And the more we get to know him, he never stops being that guy, that Han Solo or whatever crusty guy you want to compare him to. But we gradually discover there's a story there. Love it. And the way you're writing this is great. Now he has a new partner, or as Julius calls it, Mondays. Perfect. Did you make that up?
Yes. Though I will admit I stole Mondays from Garfield.
Whatever, man. It's good. It's really good. It's all of this.
Yeah, that I just copy and pasted off of one of our earlier things.
Mm-hmm. So I love this. This is great. Right at the end. Unfortunately, saving the world as a whole is out of the question. I would just avoid the word question out of these days. What I would say is saving the world as a whole is off the table. Period. The only question is how much of the world will have to. So I would have always, of course, avoid doubling up the same word twice, and that's a semantic thing. You can take care of that. I think it's a great way to end. The only question is how much of the world will have to be sacrificed to save the rest, or you can say how much of the world can they save. However you word that, the whole idea is like, oh no, there's no question a lot of people are going to die. The question is how many people can we keep from dying, and that's a really great dramatic way to kind of get me hooked into your story. I think I had one question about Daphne. Excuse me. Does she have any depth to her character, or is she just simply there to help make the story happen? Does she have a story as well?
Not really. I really just read her as like the mom and character, like trying to wrangle cats
Okay.
as a bunch of overpowered people try and help the world and rather die or cause unnecessary collateral damage during the attempt.
Okay.
You know, think of you're running an organization and half your agents tend to blow up too much stuff and the other half are all dead, and you're pulling your hair out, kind of.
Mm,
Oh yeah, and you're underfunded.
fair. Yeah, I would. I'm curious. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing if there's opportunities to help give her more of a character, because even the Colby Smulders character in Avengers, what's her name? Nick Fury's right hand man. What the hell's her name?
Uh,
Anyway,
Something I can't remember.
yeah. Even she's got eventually some some depth to that character. But it's great. I think your synopsis. Otherwise, I'll send this to you in terms of I'm gonna oh, the conjunction. The conjunction was the only other thing that I thought. Um, Unfortunately, the conjunction is about to happen. That will probably just go over. Like that isn't one of those
Yeah,
things where people go,
like I
"Ooh, the
said,
conjunction."
this is one of those things I just copy and pasted from an earlier segment.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing at this point is basically the last line is the only thing worth keeping.
Which one?
The
Oh
one,
no, I think most of this is worth keeping. I think it's really well written.
well, I can only have one synopsis.
Well, how many? Oh, these are all separate synopses.
Yeah,
Oh, I see what you're doing here. I thought this was all part of one synopsis.
it doesn't
Um,
really flow that well, does it?
well, no, and that's why I thought you were still working on it. I thought it was kind of a work in progress. Um, I mean, you could go. I mean, as a synopsis is concerned, you could eliminate. I think it's important to say something about him. Oh, let's see now. Let me just think this through. Let's put it this way. I think you can keep all of the first one, take the last sentence from this last part, and in the middle, give us just a little taste of Julius. So I would go, the Bureau of Paranormal Activity, down to, however you read word, change the very landscape of the planet. Then I would rework like 2 sentences or maybe 3 maximum about Julius, and then jump right down to like integrate. If you I don't think you need to say most of this again. You can just say, saving the world as a whole is out of the is off the table. The only question is how much of it can they save, or
Something like,
however you word that.
but what they don't know is that saving the world is off the table. Something like that.
Sure, yeah, that works. I would rework all of that because I think you've got the nuts and bolts are all here. Compress, clean, do whatever you want with that. Throw it to me one more time. And I love where your head's at because you've got a nice, tight, punchy. Holy shit. Think about this, Hayden. When you and I first started working on this story, and it was great. I thought it was conceptually great right from the beginning. I was sad to see that whole intro that you had, that sort of Hitchhiker's Guide kind of intro monologue. I loved that, but I think it is stronger by getting right into the action like you do now. Like it's more accessible for more people. But look at what you've done. You've gotten every time we get to the story, it gets clearer, it gets punchier, and I think you're developing a flair for putting into words what this story is and making me want to listen to it. So yeah, it's rocket fuel, man. You're right there. You're right on the edge. So I would suggest, and this took me all the time to go through it. I would suggest you go through this again with a fine tooth comb and send me what you've got.
Okay. So one more
Um,
iteration for the synopsis then.
I think so. Yeah, probably at least one, and maybe all you need is one. I do actually. I just said that was the only thing I looked at. That's not true. I also have final notes on your prologue. I went through that as well, and almost nothing to change. I think that I think bottom line is, I think you could, if you already put it up.
No, like I said, I need a synopsis before I can put anything up.
Gotcha. I think this is golden. I think you can take one last check throw the final to me one more time, just so I can go through it. I'll be looking simply for formatting at this point, formatting, grammar, English, punctuation, all the nitty gritty stuff. I love this. Gloria's body exploded like rotten fruit is amazing. Did you come up with that?
Yep.
Perfect. The only thing I would do is I might combine this for like the monster crushed Gloria, her head popping off, crunch slurp, Gloria's body exploded like a rotting foot as a rotting fruit as the monster crushed her body. And like, well, you just said the monster crushed her. So my suggestion would be combine them, and not that this is the perfect way to word it, but something like this, for example. The monster squeezed her between both hands and she exploded like rotting fruit, her head popping off and bouncing off the ceiling before landing with an inglorious thud next to Jeffrey, or something like that. Because then you can put all those together. I wouldn't put the word off twice there. I've gone and done it, but I like the idea of combining. Yeah, have it so that he squishes the body. It squishes like rotten fruit. Off goes the head, hits the ceiling, lands next to Jeffrey. That's terrifying. That's horrifying, or something like that. That's the only place where I thought maybe you could.
Okay.
By
the way, how did the paragraph end? What did you think of that?
You mean this paragraph down here, the tentacles on the creature's face?
With what Richard hoped was hunger.
Yeah, what tell me what you're going for there. You're hoping he'll eat her and not eat him? Well, no, is that what you mean by that?
I was kind of trying to insinuate that Richard was concerned about it having other emotional reactions to a corpse.
I didn't pick up on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you might. I think it's good though. I love that you experimented with it. My temptation would be to just sort of end it at earlier than that. But otherwise, it flows so well. And I didn't have anything then. Like honestly, go through it one last time. Maybe throw it to me if you want to. I think you could also. I think you could publish it. I really think you're really close. That's the only thing I might do is just fine tooth comb it. And I'm happy to get really anal with you about that. That sounded terrible. Just to make sure that all of the grammar and spelling and stuff is there. I think you're golden.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I will send you, hang tight. Where am I? Oh, I'm doing a retrospective on Adele here. That's so funny. I had to get a picture. Here we go. Where are you? There you are. So here, let me just throw both of those in there. Synopsis and prologue. Perfect. And I was thinking too, Hayden, for next week, what did my thing sign out? That's bizarre. It's really weird. Here we are. So for next week, next week it doesn't matter. Yeah, I was going to say today's Monday. I'll be gone to Seattle this weekend. Doesn't affect you at all. Perfect. So does 5:30 next week work again for you?
Works perfectly for me.
Awesome.
Oh,
okay.
Did you get to see? Did you get to see the end of Stranger Things?
Don't say anything. No, I haven't seen the last two. Like that whole thing. I know some stuff that happens, but only one thing that happens. So I'm trying to keep my mind clear from it.
Don't spoil.
Thanks, brother. Awesome. Okay, I've got everything here. Perfect. There you go. We'll see you next Monday.
Okay. See you next Monday. Later, Paul.
Take care, Hayden.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What's up there?
That's nothing. Just Death's throne room.
What? I thought that's where you were taking me.
I was taking you to my studio apartment to hang. Nobody sees death. The most you can hope for is a two-legged stool, like a blanket.
Oh, geez.
Or is a two-legged stool, like a blanket.
Oh, geez. I'm talking to death.
Mine.
Huh?
Surprised and unbreakable chains of mutual hate. Sorry.
What the dickens?
Boundaries of moral judgment. Can you see me?
I'll be a number one.
Don't question my mercy hat, Jake. Just eat your cake. You too, Lady Jake.
Do as he says, Margaret.
Well, you're a very hot duck, but you bake a swell cake.
If only Jake could see me.
Hope you don't have any notes. I already started the shading.
Where's Jake? Why this face?
Because that's what you look like. Constantly.
Ah! This is all fit long and pull the veil on my empty existence. Know what I gotta do.
You saved me.
At long last!
Not as long as Newt
Ah!
in charge. We're gonna sort it.
Nice and easy.
Do you really mean all that stuff?
Jake!
Behind you, son! Boys.
The Janai, a secret hands of the Wraith. This drove their society underground, where they could advance technology. As a result, the Janai became but rarely making true friends and allies. The Janai are natives of the Pegasus Gap, the vampiric species awakened, and these cullings suppressed the development of human cultures. In response, the Janai people lived a dual existence for generations. One sits above ground, where they appear to be a simple agrarian society, known throughout the galaxy particularly for their tava beans. But another is concealed in a network of underground caverns, where the true Janai were able to advance technologically and build their military effects of their cultures suppressed. The devotion to this appears to have a network to trade with other planets suppressed, always hiding their true nature even from their allies. Long ago, in fact, the Janai civilization itself spoke of extinction thousands of years in underground bunkers. Today, the Janai's level of technology is roughly equivalent to the United States and have developed, but not perfected, atomic weapons. Makes them a dangerous player, an eager willingness to take the fight straight to the John Shepard and his team first met the Janai. Their leader was a military chief named Cowan. After a joint operation to infiltrate a Wraith hive ship resulted in the death of one of his men, Cowan turned on Shepard's team. At gunpoint, he attempted to extort both a valuable Wraith data storage device and the team's puddle jumper. The effort failed, and Atlantis' relationship with the Janai was soured. Some weeks later, Cowan ordered a Janai infiltration team penetrated the city and temporarily took control. Taking advantage of a major storm was taken out, and the measures protecting the city from the storm front were disabled. Kolya gave up Atlantis and fled through the Stargate. The Janai lost more than 60 soldiers in the effort, solidifying hostile relations with the expedition. Elizabeth Weir contacted the Janai in an effort to secure their aid, or provided the Janai with an opportunity against a Wraith hive ship. After Kolya's failed attempt to seize Atlantis, Janai homeworld, his suspicious nature now turned upon his own leader. Kolya determined to overthrow what he believed was Cowan's corrupt regime. When his plans were exposed, Kolya was forced to flee, along with a small detachment of men still loyal to him. Before he could mount his return to oppose Cowan for control of the Janai's future, one of Kolya's cunning young soldiers, Laden Redeem, orchestrated his own power grab. It was he who had exposed Kolya's plan and enacted a shrewd plan to eliminate Cowan and replace him in a coup d'etat. Pretending to be working with Cowan to trick Atlantis, Laden turned the tables on the Janai commander, killing Cowan and his elite guard with one of his own nuclear weapons. When Laden returned home, Cowan's loyalists saw their defeat and laid down their weapons. The Janai hailed the event as a bloodless coup, since none of their people had died on Janai soil. In subsequent years, Laden proved to be more amicable to an alliance with Atlantis, if an uneasy one. Though he did not try to storm the city or kill its people, Laden continued to operate in his own interests, and those of the Janai people. For more people, places, and things from the Stargate universe, visit StargateOmnipedia.com.
Buddy, you think you look strong? You're wearing a cape. You're just a cheap fucking knockoff.
God damn it!
うちの名前はシノン。いたずらすぎ。固定にさらわれたアリスさんを。
Hey, how are you?
I didn't mean to come here.